This video is for ePrime 2.0 standard users who have been given an ePrime 2.0 professional file format file. As you may know, the professional file format cannot be opened in ePrime 2.0 standard because professional has several features that are not available in standard. So, if you are in that situation where you receive a professional experiment file with the extension .es2, then you should ask someone who has ePrime 2.0 Professional to follow the steps described in this video. Otherwise, if you have to use this file, but you cannot get a hold of somebody with ePrime 2.0 Professional who can do this conversion for you, then I ask you to open a web support request on our support site. So if you now have ePrime 2.0 Professional and want to convert your professional file into the standard file format, here's some warnings to keep in mind. First of all, if you have any professional features, for example, multiple instances of a device in your experiment, note that this will be stripped out of your file during the copy and paste process. Consider compiling your file into a runtime, a .ebs2 file, and then just asking your colleague to just use the runtime file to collect data. The runtime files are of only one format, so whether they are generated using ePrime 2.0 Professional or ePrime 2.0 Standard, both of them can be used in the eRun application. So let's start with this very basic experiment. This is a professional version of the basic RT sample that comes with every installation. And so in this case, you can tell at a glance that it is in the professional file format by expanding the structure window here, and then you'll see after the experiment name that professional will be in all caps here. This will show up after you save your professional file for the first time. So let's say that you want to turn this into standard. This will have to be done via copy and paste. So the first thing you can do is you can move this to the right side of the screen. If you happen to be using Windows 7, you can just hit Windows and the right arrow key and it will snap to the right here. So even though this is ePrime 2.0 Professional and I've just opened another instance of it here, you have the choice of whether you want to make a professional file format or a standard filed format when you save your file. So in this case, you can see, because I'm using the production release of ePrime 2.0, that it will say professional or standard in parentheses here. Today we're going to be picking blank standard, but I just wanted to add that if you happen to be using an older version of ePrime, such as 2.0.8.90, this will just say blank and it won't have standard after it, but it will be the same in that both files would be of the standard file format. So I'm going to press OK to open this. And I am going to save this in my Experiments folder. I think I'll call it Basic RT Standard. You can see that when I'm saving it here, it is in the ePrime 2.0 Standard Files file format. Alternatively, you could see, because I have ePrime 2.0 Professional open here, I could pick the professional file format, but I'm just going to stay with standard because I'm making this a standard version. Now you can see that as soon as I save this file, that it now says standard right after the experiment object. I'd also like to add that in the production release of ePrime 2.0, this says standard, but if you're using an older version of ePrime 2.0, you may find that if it's in the standard file format, that it actually just says nothing after the experiment object. So professional will always say professional after the object, but depending on your version, you'll see either standard or nothing. So now all I need to do is copy the contents of this professional file into the standard file. And I recommend that you go from the bottom up, because the way the paste works is that when you copy an object from one experiment to another, that object will always move to the beginning of whatever procedure you're pasting it into. So if I right-click on Goodbye here, you'll see that I have the choice to copy. And I'm going to go over here to the standard side and press Paste. And so the Goodbye object has moved over. I'm going to copy the block list next. And when I paste it here, you'll see that it automatically brings everything underneath the block list with it. So this is another great reason to use the block list trial list structure. So now I'm going to bring over the instructions object. It looks like it would be done. However, there's a couple places that you want to look at to make sure that you have brought over everything you need on the standard side. First, if you compare the experiment object properties on each one of these, you'll see that in this case we had an author here, so you may want to transfer that over. If you had any notes that you put in here, startup info parameters, anything in here would not automatically get moved over here, with the exception of devices. So if you copied an object that had an input mask that was associated with a certain device, and the standard side did not have that device, during the copy and paste, the device would get brought over to the standard file. And if there's any conflicts, you would receive a prompt telling you more about whatever the conflict may be. I can tell that this is all moved over here, so I'm going to press OK. There's another place that you should look, and that is in the script object. So if I go to View, Script, you'll see that there's the full script here, or there may be something in the user script window here. So that's another thing to check out. And of course, now that you've made all these changes, it's a great idea to compile and then run an experiment. So what happens if you get any sort of errors, or you see a conflict message saying that you can't bring over something for professional standard? Then I just ask that you open a support request and we can help you out with anything there.